Hello, welcome. Thank you for attending this panel on the Juggling Act here at the Harvard Extension School Open House. I'm delighted to welcome our panelists for today who are going to speak about how to juggle your personal, your professional, and your academic life. Here with us today, we have Melissa Bustillo. Melissa is an ALB alumna and public speaking teaching assistant at the Harvard Extension School. As a first-generation Latin American immigrant, she is currently working toward being more involved with the Latinx community as it pertains to the mental health field. Next up, we have Sean Zhang. Sean is a father and a husband. Professionally, he has been in cybersecurity for 22 years, and he currently works for a large financial institution. He is pursuing his ALM in management and plans to graduate in the spring of 2022. Next up, we have Stephanie Cannell. Stephanie is a wife, mother, and a full-time student who has juggled multiple jobs, including being a deckhand on a shrimp boat and a caregiver. She is a student in the joint degree program and has recently completed her ALB with a concentration in anthropology, and she's working toward her ALM in the field of industrial organizational psychology. After completing her ALM, she plans to go on to law school. Finally, we have Trey Swinton. Trey is an officer in the United States Air Force of 11 years. He currently serves as a Defense Acquisition Program Manager. Trey is a 2021 graduate of the Harvard Extension School, where he earned his Master of Liberal Arts and Extension Studies in the field of management, alongside a graduate certificate in strategic management. Welcome, panelists. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. So on the topic of balance and juggling, to get us all oriented, I would like each of you to give yourself a grade from between A through F of how good you are at balancing. And you're going to give yourself 2 grades, one at the beginning of your degree and one either at the end or up till where you are now. Let's start with Sean. What are your 2 grades?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say my grade before or starting the program, probably a C. Now I would say a solid B+.
Great. Stephanie.
I think when I started, I would give myself a B. I've always been a pretty organized person, which worked in my favor, but I definitely had some learning to do. But I think now I'm like a solid A- at least.
Wonderful. Trey.
So I'm probably inverted in that I probably started off really well, really focused and on top of everything when I first began the program. And then as I got more comfortable, I think I probably began to procrastinate a little bit more than I probably should. And I probably could have stood to be more balanced. So up front, I started out probably at a A and then probably dwindled down to about maybe a B+.
Thank you for your honesty, Trey. And Melissa.
When I first started, I would say B for balance, but it was a hard adjustment for sure. So that kind of took a toll. And towards the end, I would say probably an A- because as you progress in the degree, life just puts on more. So it's hard to achieve an A in my perspective. So I would say a solid A-.
Nice. B for balance, A-. Well, Melissa, please tell me in just a couple of sentences, how would you define balance?
I think balance is making sure that all your priorities in your life have a good amount of attention that you can dedicate to time and energy and effort. When one kind of takes all of those things, then you're not so much in balance. But when you're able to equally spread yourself out to a point where you're not spread out so thin, I think that's balance.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you all for sharing your grades and your honesty. I appreciate that. And I asked that question just to show our listeners today that if you want to come to the Extension School, you come as you are. And if you come with an open mind, open heart, open planner and scheduler, you do have a chance to change yourself. And as many folks have pointed out just in this short panel, that you can come in with one kind of level of balance and you can walk away with another. And from that experience, whether it's an increase in your grade or a decrease in your balance grade, from that you can reflect and sort of see, well, what happened, and what did this degree do for me in my life? And when I think about balance and Melissa's definition of it, I think, okay, well, what is the first thing you need to create balance, to juggle? Well, tools, tactics. So Sean, what are some of the tactics unique to you that you carry on your tool belt for managing your responsibilities across the three realms?
Well, that's a great question. So the key there, I would say, number one, in terms of tools for the balance, is really prioritization. It's really knowing what you want. I'm going to build on Melissa's part a little bit in terms of balance, and I use that word very deliberately. I view balance as a balance between doing things that I want and things that I have to. And one thing I did there is I have basically be very clear to myself. I chose to pursue a master from Harvard. I choose to pursue this degree. And that shift that whole thing into I want. So the balance between what I want to do and what I have to do. So now all the commitment for the ALM program now is part of what I want to do. And if I want to do it now, the tools is then, well, let's prioritize. And naturally, the learnings and the commitments flow up to the prioritization process.
Thank you. Prioritization. I'll be asking some more questions on that shortly. But before I move away from the sort of strategies, the skills, the resources, I wondered, Stephanie, you could tell me, planning and preparation only go so far. I know you came into the program with a high grade in your balancing act, but learning and life present unexpected surprises. Please tell me, was there a specific class or moment during your time in the program that helped you adapt and improve your ability to juggle?
Absolutely. I had to take Stat 100 and to get into the master's program. And I actually ended up withdrawing from it the first time I took it because I had a very set learning style and I was so confused. And I said, I've got to take this class. I have to figure out a way to make it. So I ended up re-enrolling the following semester and I had to change and adapt my learning style. I ended up having to watch the class first and then go back and take the notes later instead of trying to watch and take notes. It was all about learning to adapt your learning style and just expand your expectations of
Wonderful.
yourself.
Absolutely. Adaptability, I would say,
Yes.
is a huge part of figuring out how to manage everything.
Absolutely.
As your intros to all four of you said, you're not just students. You have families, you have professional responsibilities, you have personal lives, you have friends, you have dinner tonight. There's all kinds of things that you need to do. So being adaptable. And your takeaways at the end make me think, Trey, I want to ask this one to you. What are the two most important takeaways you have from the experience of working to find balance at Harvard?
As was previously stated, prioritization is extremely important, and being very intentional about what your priorities are and understanding the work associated with achieving those priorities or achieving those goals. So I think my biggest takeaway is, again, identifying goals, identifying gates, if you will, or areas in which you want to work towards or improve, documenting those or making them very clear to you, and so that you can be intentional about satisfying those goals or achieving whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. So my biggest takeaway is establishing realistic goals, breaking them down, and just focusing on them and prioritizing them accordingly.
Wonderful. The word you said, intention, being purposeful, not jumping into this without knowing, kind of like a wild ride, really being thoughtful in how am I doing this and what is on my plate and how do I navigate that? Yeah. And when I think about organizing and goals and breaking things down, I think about, how one realm can influence another. So Melissa, as an academic advisor personally for the undergraduate program, I try to encourage this interconnectivity between your personal life, your professional life, your academic life. So going to school isn't so, siloed and off to the corner. So it's kind of the centerpiece that helps connect your life and kind of cross-pollinate things. Could you give some examples of how you were able to use one area to enhance another, or maybe create efficiencies or clever connections?
Yes, in fact, when I think about it, it took me 7 years to finish my ALB or undergrad degree. And when I started looking for jobs in my particular field, I felt like I'm not going to get a job. I'm not good enough. I've spent these 7 years just trying to balance my life, my job at the time, and being a student, and not just being a student, but applying myself and doing the best I can. And what I found was that once I started interviewing, a lot of the skills that I was able to build on and learn to incorporate from being a non-traditional student really prepared me for going out into like professional endeavors. And for example, in my current job, I use a lot of the time management skills that I use. And having been around a lot of diverse people throughout the ALB degree prepared me for being around diverse communities and learning about different people and seeing their different backgrounds and how that has affected them. So after having those doubts after graduating and thinking I'm not good enough, and then like realizing that in fact I am more than good enough, and feeling like the ALB degree gave me more than just an education. It gave me all these different skills that I use every single day throughout and after completing my degree.
Melissa, thank you. And congrats on finishing your degree. I don't think anyone can ever say that enough to any of you for all of your tremendous accomplishments, and pointing out how long it took you to complete your degree, as is quite common for students in the undergraduate program, of which I'm one. It took me 9 years. It makes me think about how finishing a degree sometimes is kind of like a marathon. You have to train, you have to cross-train, you have to keep training, you have to think mind, body, spirit. All of these things go into the balance of this one piece that then can also, influence the balance in the other realms. So it takes stamina and it takes a long time. And in thinking about that, we can't always do everything all the time. So Stephanie, this one's for you. I wondered, how did you decide what was most important when you couldn't fit everything into a given day or week or month?
In my case, it really came down to really tight scheduling. So I didn't have to make those decisions so much. I've made sure I spread my stuff out 7 days a week, schoolwork, because in my particular situation, my life, it's a pun I use with my family quite a bit. I say my life often resembles a Lifetime movie, and I just accept the chaos. So I schedule schoolwork in blocks, 7 days a week, little pieces. So when those moments come up, I've got time for them. I pre-plan for the inevitable as much as possible. And I just try and roll with the punches. But for me, it all comes down to planning and just embracing that life happens ahead of time.
Absolutely. Oh, Stephanie, 7 days a week. I think
7 days a week.
Hashtag Harvard Extension, 7 days a week. It's true that, school isn't relegated to just the weekends or just during the week. It becomes an integral part of your day. And as such, your practice of being a person. It becomes part of your identity, being a student, being a Harvard graduate. Well, Sean, I wondered, how, could you share a brief story or an anecdote that illustrates maybe how you failed in curating balance and what you learned from that experience?
Hmm. Let's see. I'm thinking through which one I want to share in terms of failure. There's a few of them.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, so maybe I'll share the one about, I think it's also along the same theme as adapting and learning tips, in the sense that for me, I got to relearn how to learn. It's been a while since I've been in college. I graduated college. It was a long time ago. Now picking this up again. One of my first failure was in the business rhetoric class, writing. And frankly, I've just forgotten how to write well. And I've been, for the last 20 plus years, I've been writing practical, right? Professional emails, but I have not been writing well with deep insights, more so oriented toward just getting actions and communicating information. So in that class, I really, I struggled through it. I didn't do so well in the midterm. A couple things that I did. One, I basically told myself, you know what, I'm not going to worry about grade. I'm going to keep an eye on the grade, but I'm going to focus on learning. And that was the start of this whole thing, where that turned out to be pretty much true across all the classes, all the courses. I found that as long as focus on learning, the professor will see that. And I'm gonna keep an eye out on the grades, right? Be real, where you should be pragmatic, but don't focus on the grade. And I've done well. And the other thing in that class is I realized I eventually I did well in the class, but it was very painful, very, very painful. The 3 days before the paper, the final paper was due, day and night. That was all I was thinking. Obviously, it's a weekend. It was a weekend. I also took a day off for the just so I know, planning ahead, just like Stephanie had shared, right? Plan ahead, took the day off. So the net there is, what I realized is, you know what, the way I write, I'm gonna, from now forward, I'm gonna set a personal deadline that's a week early, and I'm gonna, if I miss that, I'm still ahead of schedule. And then it also gives me a few days to add dramas, intrigue, or storytelling. So that's the failure that I can think of, is I fail, but I learn from it. Now here's what I do, and it's been, quite effective.
I think the best place to fail is in school, right? Because it's all about learning
Absolutely.
and learning from failures. Thank you,
And it's a
Sean.
safe place, super safe place to fail, to learn to fail. And in fact, I might just add on to that.
Mhm.
A lot of the classes, the professor actually built in places for you to fail so that you can learn and without jeopardizing your grade.
Yes, I remember I had one class. It was the pro seminar, the entry class into the ALM degree. So the stakes are high. My paper is determining my future if I'm a Harvard graduate student. And the first draft, the professor said, I'm not even going to read it, but you have to write it. And the words just flew. Writer's block. And I were like, mm-mm. I just wrote everything. And it was such a wonderful opportunity. I could fail. I could fail in every sentence, and it didn't matter because I did it. And the professor gave that opportunity. Thank you, Sean, for reminding me of that.
You're welcome.
Well, and clearly from just the talk we've had so far, all of us have some similarity in how we find balance and what tactics we employ to do that. But also it's all different because each of us are different. And that's one of the beautiful parts about the extension school, is it draws very diverse people. So Trey, this one's for you. In your experience across semesters or life changes or professional growth, is balance something that you achieve at one point, that you constantly, every day, every minute, have to work toward, or somewhere in between?
I would argue that it's more constant than anything. I believe, as was stated earlier, life is life, full of all of its ups and downs and surprises, uh, wins, losses, times of gladness, times of sadness, and just all that there is with life. And so I think you're constantly um, under pressure to perhaps do certain things, or uh, uh, you know take care of certain aspects of your life, and just figuring out how to constantly evaluate. I like how how it was stated earlier, your what you want to do versus what you have to do. And I think that's something that has to be perpetually evaluated, um, again, just as you manage through the changes in diversity of life. So that would be my answer.
Wonderful. Thank you, Trey. Well, so this one's for all of you, and we can take turns answering. What was your secret weapon? We're all circling around some similar themes: prioritization, scheduling, embracing failure, all of that. So it could just be one word or a couple of words. But what was your secret weapon? And what is? Some of you are still students. Let's start with Melissa.
I would say passion, because if you don't have a passion for it, then you're not going to figure it out, because as much as you can plan for it, things are just going to happen. And sometimes you are stuck writing a paper and not going to sleep until 2 a.m. And that's when passion is like, no, we got to get through this and we're going to do this no matter what. So passion.
Passion. I love it. Trey, how about you?
I'm gonna say perseverance. The program is rigorous, it's tough, and I think just believing that you can do hard things is very important. And so as you're challenged and as coursework becomes increasingly difficult and seems as if there's not enough time in the day to accomplish all that you're responsible for, just really persevering and believing in yourself, relying on the support systems that you may have around you, family and friends, to really just sort of overcome the challenges that are inevitable to occur in pursuing such a rigorous program, but nonetheless keeping in mind your goals and where you're trying to go, and keeping that at the forefront and just persevering through the challenges so that you can reach that endpoint.
Trey, I can do hard things. That is wonderful. If there's one thing I take away from the degree, it's the belief in myself. I can do hard things. And I never verbalized it that way. Thank you for giving me that. Wonderful. Okay, Sean, what's your secret weapon?
Yeah, so for me, there will be just like everyone have a share, right? You plan, you are very deliberate, you plan for all things, you built in time for emergency, but there will be difficult periods where I'm stressed and overwhelmed, just like I can't do this or I can't do this anymore. And I go back to what I shared earlier, like in the spring semester, just this past semester, there was a time like that. And then I just remind myself, look, I choose to take design thinking, a course here. I chose to take negotiation and conflict resolution because I because I chose to learn, let's do the job like I mean to. Now let's go and finish the job like I mean to. So that mindset gives me the freedom and permission to prioritize, and also to get a little bit more of that passion to push to finish the job.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sean. And Stephanie, what's your secret weapon?
I think my secret weapon is just really a genuine, deep love of knowledge. I love learning, and even when things get hard, it is such a rigorous program. Just being surrounded by these like bright, brilliant minds. I've learned so much and taken so much in and grown. And it's like sometimes I feel like my brain's just like exploding with knowledge from this place. And it just makes it worth it to me. Even all the stress and the late nights, like I've learned so much. It's worth it.
Oh, yes, Stephanie. It makes me think about how the extension school is the place for Harvard students who are also, dealing with very big responsibilities: a job, a child, caring for an elder, juggling multiple businesses, facing big things. And yet, if you love knowledge and you want to be around people who have passion and perseverance, you are inspired by knowledge, where it's okay to fail and you can do hard things, then this is the place to be. Wonderful. Oh. Well, this question's for a couple of you. So raise your hand and let me know if you want to answer this one. So what people in your life served as resources when you were navigating the different 3 areas of your life, juggling? Who wants to take this one? Stephanie.
Okay, well, I've got to give, we talked about it before. I'm going to give a big shout out to you. For anybody watching, Sarah was my academic advisor, And she has talked me through so much stress and choices, class choices, what to pick, what not to pick. And your academic advisors are such an incredible tool for you to lean on. Like, your victories are their victories. So Sarah, thank you. You guided me through that ALB, and I appreciate you. And I also have to say, I'm very fortunate. My mother and I are very close, and I rely on her so heavily through it. But like I said before, it's to the point, like, my victories are her victories, my downs are her downs, and making those support systems is just so vital. I'm very blessed and privileged to have family, but even making them through your classmates and support groups is absolutely essential.
Oh, Stephanie, you're making me blush. I'm so proud of you and your accomplishments, and I'm so impressed that you're going on to your ALM and your law degree. But what you say is so true, that the advisors care so much. Your success is their success. And when you're struggling, they want to be there. And there are so many resources that you can find through your advisor. Thank you for that. Anyone else want to answer that question?
Yeah, I'll go.
Sean?
Yeah, so first I would second the academic advisor. So shout out to Lynn Larson, who's my academic advisor. I think one thing there is, at least for me, the big thing is you can open up to the academic advisor. You can tell the academic advisor, hey, I have an 9-year-old. I need to, read him to bed, storybooks, whatever your life challenges. And then obviously then you transfer to well, I'm looking for something that a little bit more committed because it's less commitment because it's summer versus it's fall. And they are very helpful. They're there almost all the time. The other thing I would build on is that support system. So for me, it's my wife. So I couldn't have done any of this. I mean, without the full support of my wife, having that support system, being understanding on what I'm pursuing, that's one thing, and supporting me on that. But also, she's also my proofreader. So in a way, she's also getting a partial Harvard education. And there are things to interconnectivity. Now we actually, for example, in negotiation and conflict resolution, I wrote some papers. She was my proofreader. Now we have actually a common set of language to discuss different issues as a family when we deal with family issues.
Oh, I love that. Oh, Sean, Harvard Extension School, improving your home life.
Absolutely.
Oh, and thanks to your wife for proofreading. We all have those people, you know who you are. Oh, and what you and Stephanie both said is so meaningful, in that, lean on your family, whether it's your immediate family or your chosen family. And that when you graduate, they do too. And if you're a first generation student, your whole family, your whole heritage graduates with you. And that's a very big honor to be a part of a school that can enable that. So wonderful. Oh, well, okay, here's one I'll toss out. Who wants to answer this one? What services did you find in your Harvard experience that helped you manage? We talked about academic advising. Were there any other help, support services?
I think the writing center, which is something, unfortunately, well, now I'm in my ALM, so I can use it more, but finishing my ALB, I didn't really use it until this past semester when I took the pro seminar. And I really wish I had utilized them much sooner. They were absolutely wonderful. They have so many appointments you can book, and I have a crazy schedule. And so if they can fit me in, or if I can find time to fit them in, they're pretty solid. But they were just incredible for reading things over, going over your paper with you. It's a solid resource. They were fantastic.
Absolutely. They all know me by name.
I would also say instructors are a great resource too, because I think what you come to find at the extension school is that a lot of instructors are very passionate about teaching and teaching to non-traditional students. And it's very easy to build that relationship with instructors, and they can guide you a lot too.
Absolutely. And I would even add to that teaching assistants. So oftentimes teaching assistants are the kind of the bridge between, I'm not your instructor, I'm a little bit more on your side, but I'm also your instructor. So I'm helping you kind of meet those needs. Absolutely. Well, Trey, this one's for you. And let me know if you've got an answer to this one. So how were you able to work with your colleagues or your boss or your team to manage such a significant undertaking academically?
So I'm going to take the approach, assuming you're talking about my professional life. Yeah, I think definitely just communicating sort of what I was doing and making sure that they were aware, particularly on days where I needed to leave work a little bit early in order to make a early course to meet, especially when I was in Massachusetts and I needed to get on the train and then walk to class and then be there on time. Maybe even change out of my military uniform to show up to class. So just communicating, hey, this is a program that I'm pursuing, and just making sure that they're situationally aware. On these days, I'm going to need to leave work a little bit early, and I that was welcomed, and they were very supportive in that. So that would probably be how I'd answer it. Just making sure to communicate. I know I definitely injected in a number of discussions where I was able to say, oh, well, in class we were talking about this or that. And that was always exciting. And I think that my work environment enjoyed that as well. But bottom line, just communicating and making sure that they're aware, just like you would your family, so that there's understanding about what it is that you're doing and pursuing, ultimately to better enrich that environment.
Absolutely. And you basically touched on my follow-up question I want to ask, if that's okay.
Sure.
I wondered if you could give an example of how you brought something you learned in school or in your homework into your work life.
Yeah, I work with a lot of integrated teams, meaning, different functional expertise that comprise a team that's sort of pursuing a singular mission. I assume most organizations are organized that way, but in particularly, I work with contracting officers, financiers, attorneys, engineers, and we sort of are all working to deliver capabilities for the military. And being in those environments and leading those teams, I've definitely taken lessons from courses such as organizational behavior, strategic management, and many others. So like specific examples of content, I would probably have a hard time answering, but I certainly apply lots of lessons learned in those environments, and more so in how I conducted myself in interacting with my teammates and diverse teammates at that. So those are my big takeaways from the extension school as I applied it to my workplace.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, yeah. And that idea of changing yourself to then change the environment, to influence that environment, and kind of managing yourself and taking all of what you've learned and bringing it to that environment to just elevate it and to, enhance the team as a whole, which leads to my next question, which is from Melissa. So how did and do you take care of yourself to be able to split your focus between being a student, being a person who has a job, being a caring family member, to be present and engaged?
It was hard to do so. I think at first I neglected that, but I think when I lost my mom, when she died, it forced me to really be able to take care of myself and to give myself permission to do so. That really forced me to give myself time to deal with emotions and take time for myself as I needed and as it came up in the day-to-day and the months after. But just being intentional about taking care of myself and knowing that self-care is just something that comes up every day, putting some time aside for myself and making sure I plan things in advance to make sure that I can also see a time where I know I can dedicate some time to do whatever I want, whether that be just binging Netflix after a long semester of learning, or doing nothing if that's what I need, but just making that active choice to plan ahead for time for myself, and also being flexible and allowing that freedom to take a break, even if it's unplanned.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your story, Melissa. It deeply resonates with me, as I hope our listeners can relate in that life does not hold to the boundaries of 9 to 5 or a 16-week semester, and things happen at all times. You know, first and foremost, you're human, and humans have other humans that they care about and who are a part of them. And thank you for sharing that story. Wonderful. All right, to bring us home, I have a question for each of you. It is, in one sentence, what would you tell prospective students about the balance needed to perform well at the Harvard Extension School, and what you can take away from coming here? Who wants to go first?
I'll kick it off.
All right, Stephanie.
I would say that Harvard University's Extension School will push you to adapt your thinking academically and personally, and it's going to make you expand your expectations of yourself to really extraordinary depths.
Wonderful. Extraordinary. That's the word. That's the takeaway. Thank you, Stephanie. Who wants to go next? Trey.
So I'll say that graduating from Harvard is a lofty goal. But to fulfill such a dream of becoming a Harvard graduate, the Harvard Extension School certainly offers you an opportunity to earn it.
Absolutely. Dreams, goals. This is the place to be. You know, I often think to myself that your mind is the site of your dreams. That's where they're born. And so what better place to foster them than an intellectual institution? Wonderful, Trey. Who wants to go next? Melissa.
Getting an education from the Harvard Extension School is just one part of a very rich experience. You learn so much from your peers who all have different backgrounds and stories that led them here. And in that way, it makes it even more profound and educational, because you're not just learning information, you're learning about people in the world.
Wonderful. Absolutely. As much as you learn from your books, you learn from your classmates and how diverse and wonderful they can be. All right, Sean, bring us home.
Right. What I have is, the world does not benefit by me playing small. I choose more. I choose top-notch education. If you commit the effort, embrace the learnings, and connect with your cohorts, it could change your life trajectory. It did for me.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Sean. And thank you to each of you. It's been an honor to talk to you, to hear more about your experience, your insights. As an academic advisor for the undergraduate program, I am just so impressed with what each of you have done day to day, academically and professionally. And it's been an honor to get to ask you a little bit about it in this conversation. And I hope that everyone tuning in here in the Harvard Extension School Open House can resonate with some of us and take it away. We all hope maybe to see you at a Harvard alumni event down the road. All right, signing off for now. Bye, everyone.
Bye.